I'm Terry Lawson, and welcome to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations. We are in my studio again today here in Edmonton, Alberta, and we have the pleasure of having with us Glen Bowe, a local photographer. Aside from his photography, and when he's not working, he enjoys geocaching, snowshoeing, canoeing, and pretty much anything outdoors. He also has a passion for trying to find an old truck or an old car or some rundown farmhouse somewhere out there on the prairies. His love of the outdoors and seeking out those things old is what inspires his photography. So sit back and enjoy our conversation. Welcome, Glen.
Thanks, Terry.
Now, I understand you got your first camera when you were quite young, and I'd like you to tell us about that and how your interest in photography has grown since then.
Oh yes, definitely. My first camera was one of those ancient box cameras from Kodak. A lot of people wouldn't even recognize what they are these days. And my grandfather gave it to me. It was black and white, had lots of light leakage, so it took terrible photos. But I was just a kid then, and from that time on, it just seemed like whenever I went someplace, it was natural to have a camera with me. So it just became part of me.
Yeah. And from that point, how did your photography progress from there?
Well, I think like most people, you get nicer cameras. Certainly the box camera didn't stay too long. I got one that would take real pictures and decent pictures, color, and more modern types of cameras. But it wasn't until I was probably in my 20s that I actually had my first SLR, and that was a Minolta. But even then, it didn't last too long because, I'll tell you, using film, and that's what they were then, rolls of 12 or 24 or 36, using film and not knowing what you're going to get until you have it developed, and having somebody else really develop it for you, and having all the costs with that, it just takes away all the fun. So gradually I just stopped using it. I sold it to a photography student at Nate, who I'm sure put it to good use, and I just bought a little wee camera just for family type things, and used that for a while.
Yeah.
So when the digital age really came upon us, I bought my Pentax camera, and it just kind of exploded after that because it was unlimited.
Yeah, that's true.
Just the ability to be able to take pictures and see the results, well, immediately on the back of the screen, but in real, that evening on your computer, that was just a real turning point for me.
So, hearing you talk that way, I'm just wondering how important photography has become in your life.
It is extremely important in my life, and I could go off in so many different directions with that. My family is still at home. We have twins, and they're still at home, and it provides an opportunity for adventure for them, because they know that when I'm going to go off someplace to take photos, when it's Saturday afternoon or whatever it happens to be, it might take a little nudging. They are teenagers after all, but they do know that I'm going to go someplace interesting, and they're going to see something that probably none of the kids at their school have ever seen, that most people haven't seen, and they're going to experience a place that is quite interesting and unique.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's very important. I have another hobby, and the two really merge together, and that hobby is geocaching. For those that know what it is, they'll probably understand, and for those that don't, it's really just things are hidden. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of things are hidden, and sometimes you find them just under a tree, just for the sake of finding them. But in other cases, people place these at very special locations.
Right.
For example, in northeastern Alberta, I've spent a lot of time. There's a lot of very old churches that were built by the pioneers, and they are really hidden away. You would not find them driving down Highway 16. And you won't find them driving down even the secondary highways. Some of these are on one-lane roads, and you would think that these are actually farmers, that you're on a farmer's field, but they're just beyond that. And the only reason I would even think of going there is that somebody's put a geocache there, so I know there's going to be something at the end of this road.
Mm-hmm.
And I have discovered such amazing places,
Right.
amazing things. And well, last weekend, my very last photo shoot, we were southwest of Edmonton, between Kalmar and Thorsby.
Mm-hmm.
And we discovered quite a bit off the major roads, a beautiful, beautiful Ukrainian Catholic church, very old, but still it was just striking, and that gave me an opportunity to photograph it. We also discovered an old farmstead, so the kids got a chance to see what these look like,
Yeah.
and look at some of the old things. So it means adventure.
Right.
Because the two go together. The photography gets us sort of out the door, the geocaching tells us where to go, and the rest just happens.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to hear you excited about having your kids along, because you described it very well. It gives them a totally different perspective of life than being in the city does.
Yes, too many kids don't get away from the computer or their scheduled classes for various things that they've been signed up for, and our kids aren't like that. They've been exposed to nature in places that probably most people would be very, very surprised to find out about. There's a side benefit though,
Yeah.
and if you've ever gone someplace with a group of people, you'll understand. But when you have a family in tow, it's amazing the places that you can go that you maybe wouldn't go if you were by yourself.
Right.
Seeing somebody else, a man walking around by himself, it doesn't matter what your intentions really are. If you're walking someplace that isn't normally like down the sidewalk in the city, if you're walking someplace by yourself, even carrying a camera, it can raise somebody's concerns if they see you. But if you've got your wife and your kids with you, somebody will see you and they'll just, family's out on their own.
Yeah, and I think that's true. There is this problem that some people have, especially if you're taking people shots in the city and that sort of thing. There is this little concern that people have with, what you might be doing with that camera.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, speaking of special places, and I'm sure you've been out there, as you've said, in many really cool places, and I'm curious about what you feel as you look through the lens of your camera in those situations.
Oh, that's a tough question. How do I feel? I'm concentrating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to concentrate on the things that I have learned, and probably the most important one is to make sure there isn't something sticking out of the top of my subject. The also common telephone pole or street light or whatever it is. And I'm looking at my settings, and I'm looking at that image and imagining what I could do with it at home.
Right.
But then I'm also taking lots of them as a sort of a backup, and changing a few things around just as quick as I can, because also if I have my family with me, I don't want to make them wait too long. And so I'm thinking about a lot of things, so the time flies by pretty quick.
And now you've taken that photo, and you're going to share that photo with people. I'm just wondering what you want them to get from that image.
It depends on what the image is. I could say I want them to get what I get when I look at their images. That is,
That's interesting.
being where they were seeing through their eyes a place that maybe I can't get to. So often I think in those terms, and now especially with the internet and social media, it's given me a chance to share a lot about where we live. Now, people think, yeah, this is Edmonton, it's not New York, it's not San Francisco, but that's the whole point. I've been to San Francisco many times. I think almost everybody has been to San Francisco at least once, or will be, and it's a beautiful city. How many people actually in the world, when you think of it, or even North America, come to Edmonton? We're really far north, and we're not kind of off the beaten track, and yet there are some incredible things here that we take for granted. So sometimes I'm just amazed at the comments that I get back, because these are people that don't normally see these things.
That's right.
And even local people, if I'm out in the rural areas, are very surprised at what's out there. So that's a very special part of it.
Yeah, and I find that interesting you say that, because of the photographers I've talked to recently that are local, they've all said the same thing about Edmonton. And I agree with all of you. I'm the same way. This is a beautiful place, and by having a camera in your hands, all of a sudden you do see the beauty that a lot of people don't normally see.
Yes.
Walking down the street, they're not looking at what's around them.
Yes.
But with a camera, you're continually looking. I mean, it's part of your makeup as you become a photographer. You're always looking for that shot. That
interesting place, and in that sense too, Edmonton is perhaps not unique, but it's different from some other cities in that most cities really do make an effort to put their best foot forward. I mean, look at Calgary. You go to Calgary, you're going to see some pretty beautiful towers, and when they have a pedestrian bridge, it's right on the Deerfoot. They have a suspension bridge there, which is beautiful, and they do what you would expect most cities to do. Mm-hmm. Now, for better or for worse, I don't know, but Edmonton, we hide things here. The Fort Edmonton Bridge, for example, our pedestrian bridge, you cannot see that bridge unless you are specifically going to see it.
Yeah. And it's a gorgeous bridge. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I just love taking pictures of it. I love walking on it. And lots of people do. It's busy in the summer, it's busy in the winter. There are so many examples of that, though.
Yeah.
And Edmonton is a kind of city where you could live a lifetime and still discover new things.
Yeah.
So it's great for photography.
I agree, totally. So I assume you've taken thousands of photos.
Yes.
Like I have, and I'm wondering if you see a particular style of image coming through in your photographs.
Well, probably it evolves as my skills evolve, as I learn about using my camera, using software, and also where opportunities for photography are, and as I learn from others. So definitely I would say it is not in portrait photography for a variety of reasons, and a lot of equipment is needed for that, I feel, to do it right. My style seems to be focused on architecture, buildings, bridges, natural interesting places, waterfall, not so much waterfalls perhaps, but water areas, lakes, streams, rivers, history for certain.
Right.
I love taking pictures of photographs of history, and also the style. I learned very much on a photo walk that I was on how important it is to photograph during that special hour of the day before the sun sets. Mm-hmm. Also before the sun rises, but that's a better time for sleep too. So for me, it's the later one, and I always knew it, but I didn't really practice it. And then I went on this photo walk, and I just couldn't believe what a difference it made on the images. And so some of my later images are trying to use that and to improve the overall quality. Mm-hmm. So that's also been a change. It's not always there. My last group of photographs were probably taken at the worst time of day with this high contrast sun and the likes. But it's that's how my photography has evolved, and that's the style it seems to be heading towards.
Yeah. Well, I can see there are definitely those traits in the photographs of yours that I've looked at, and you certainly are capturing interesting historical sites, and I like those a lot. I enjoy looking at those ones. They're very cool. And I'm going to have to pump you a little bit more to find out where those secret places are.
Yes.
Now, do you do a lot of preparation before you go out taking photographs, or you just head out on the fly?
Well, preparation will be, first of all, looking to see if there are some geocaches in the area, because they may highlight a very special place for me.
Right.
Or if there's an event, like last year, we went to the Great Pumpkin Festival up north and at Smoky Lake, and that will be our reason for being there.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, just making sure that we have what we need.
Yeah.
And right now, that means the snowshoes are in the back of the car, because we're not going to likely be just stopping on the side of the road. We've got batteries for the GPS. We've got the camera all charged up. Maybe some snacks and some water.
Yeah.
And off we go.
Yeah.
That's me.
And that's the excitement of it, right? Sort of the unknown, and finding these surprises that make it exciting. And one of the preparednesses you have, I don't know if that's a word or not, is that you also have your knowledge of your camera ready to go also.
Yes, well, that's also evolving. You can know something on these cameras and know it well, and then not use it for a while, a certain setting, because you're using another setting or a different lens, and then when it's time that you need to use that setting again, I was, for example, bracketing. I was trying to use bracketing a little while ago, and realized that on my camera I'd forgotten how to set that up. And so these cameras have so many functions. The new SLRs that it's easy to forget.
Yeah, and as you say, it's continued use that allows you to remember.
Yes.
That's the only way it happens.
Practice.
And I guess that's the fun of it too. It's you're continually learning, and that's what's exciting also.
If it wasn't for that, I'm sure I wouldn't be doing it. Yeah. I've had other hobbies where I've learned and enjoyed the learning and the growth that comes from it. But then you reach a point where you've made it, you've accomplished it, and after that, sometimes things become work.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't grow, if you're not growing or changing, it loses its fun.
Right.
But with photography, when I look at what quote real photographers can do, and people that have done this all their lives and actually get paid for their work, and have taken years of study at various places, it's just their work is so beautiful. And I mean, at my age, I think I could spend the rest of my life learning and not quite achieve that. So maybe I'll get the few lucky shots. But so I don't think with photography there's any risk of me mastering it all. I think there's lots to learn that'll keep it interesting.
Yeah. Now, when you get back home and you've taken all of those photographs, do you use your images right out of your camera, or do you like to do any post-processing of your images?
Oh, there's always post-processing. With any modern SLR, you have a choice between letting your camera do the processing for you, and you get a JPEG image, and that's fine if you're traveling, or you just want to capture a scene to remember it, or you're at a family reunion, you just want to grab a quick shot, something like that. But you also have a choice of RAW. I think it's a funny name, RAW, but That's where all the data is there, and you download that into your computer, and you use the software, and it's like you get a chance to do a lot of the work instead of out in the field. You get to do it at the comfort of your computer or in front of your computer screen. So I use Adobe Lightroom, and it allows me to make the adjustments to exposure, to sharpness, to contrast, and other things, and cropping it, making it just a little different. Doesn't allow me to take people out and put them in, or put somebody's face on somebody else's body, or nothing like that. But it allows me to finish the photograph, and I enjoy that a lot.
How long on average would you say that you spend on a photograph when you're in that processing mode?
Oh, that's tough. I've never really timed myself, and I don't have to, because it's not something I'm doing for a living where I need to keep it down. So I'll go down after supper usually, and I'll spend some time there. I do know that the time passes by fast, because I'll think I've been down there for half an hour or so, and then my wife will call me and say, Are you going to stay down there or come to bed? I'll realize that it's been quite late and I've been down here for a while.
Yeah.
Depending on the photograph. So some of them take so little time. You just need to do the tweaking, and if there's a lot of them that are taken in the same place, once you've done your first one, you kind of know that the other ones are going to be similar, not the same but similar, and so they don't take as long.
Yeah.
So if I were to guess at it, I'd say maybe on the low side 5 minutes.
Yeah.
On the high side, there are some images that might take more like 30 minutes.
Yeah. And I find it interesting when you talk about how time passes when you're into it, and I think that's because you're having fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now you've talked about some great experiences you've had taking photos over the years, and I'm wondering if you could share with us one of those most memorable moments.
Oh, Terry, that's that tough question. Anything when you ask that, that what's the most or the best or the highlight, it gets tough. Boy, and there's so many. There are some places that I've been to and that have been very special. But when I think about it, maybe that great moment is some of the people that I've met along the way.
Interesting.
If you're taking a picture of a building, for example, lately, we're going, especially northeast of Edmonton, there's a huge number of Orthodox churches that were, I mentioned that earlier, that were built there by the pioneers, and it's amazing how many times that I photographed them that a caretaker has shown up, or somebody else who is part of that or connected with that building somehow, and we've had a great chat with them. Last year, I know we were just driving, we're almost finished and ready to drive home, and we saw this wonderful old car with a for sale sign on it at a small town, and I just stopped, and I saw that it looks like it was the owner was cutting his lawn, so I just asked if I could take a few pictures of it. And I spent at least half an hour talking to the fellow. It's just fascinating. So those are certainly special moments. Now, if I had to put the most special, I'd have to really think about that. I don't know if there is a most. It's always that next one.
I think you've captured a very interesting aspect of photography with what you just talked about. I think that's really interesting to hear you say that, because again, it's these things of contacting with people in today's world of technology that it gets you back to feeling good about the world, right?
Yes, yes. it gives you an in to talk to somebody that you might not otherwise have any reason to stop and talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And you have something in common, probably the subject matter, so that gives you a starting point, and then you have a great conversation with somebody and learn about things that they've experienced and in their area or to do with whatever it is that
Mm-hmm.
that you're looking at. For example, this old car, and he was telling me all about how he's always wanted one and how he found this one but didn't find the time to really restore it, and so it was just it was very interesting and fascinating.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. Now, I just have one more thing I want to talk to you about, and that's your pursuit of photography. Would you think of it as a hobby specifically, or do you have a vision of where you'd like to take it?
Well, I will certainly accept money anytime. If somebody listening to this would like to buy any of my pictures, they're definitely, I'd be quite happy to sell them. But they would also be the very first people who ever paid me money for my photography. So that's not a goal. I have a day job, so photography is a hobby.
Yeah.
But also, I will be retiring before long, and it's a hobby that I anticipate I'll spend more time on, not less. So my goal is to get better at it. But in addition to that, I think the goal will always be more than just getting better at photography. It is to discover new places. My wife wants to travel, and we've put that off a little bit when, well, we have our kids and our family, but definitely once I retire, we'll be doing that. So it'll be an excuse to go to places while we travel that's off the beaten path, and to do more exploring around Edmonton and northern Alberta, and discover new things, new people, new places. It's all about discovery.
Yeah. Well, Glen, this has been really enjoyable this morning. I'm glad you took some time to come down and talk to me today. I love talking with photographers in this environment when we can sit down one-on-one and actually have a conversation. So thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Terry. It's been great for me, and it's been a discovery as well, because it's my first podcast interview. So once again, the photography has led me to something new.
Take care.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations, interviews with local photographers and those involved in the art scene. I hope you can join us for our next interview with Tom Picard, a local photographer and volunteer at the Carrot Cafe.